This might seem obvious, but a really good story starts with really good characters. It is, in my opinion, that a simple story with complex characters is way more satisfying than a meandering story full of twists and turns with characters that are boring and flat. Not only that, one of the most rewarding feelings as a viewer is seeing our character change. So today, that's what I want to talk about. I want to give you some tools to create a three-dimensional character that has room and a need to change. When we're talking about characters that change throughout the events of the movie, that's what we mean by character arc. The arc of the character is how this character changes from the beginning to the end of the movie. This change can come in different ways. It could be a lesson learned, a trauma overcome, an opinion that's shifted, and most importantly, this change is going to happen because of the events of the story. I want to talk a little bit more about this idea of three-dimensionality. What is a three-dimensional character? There's two ways you can look at it. First is this idea that the character jumps off the page. You're reading a script and this character feels so real that it jumps off the page. It's 3D. The other way to look at it is that your character contains multiple dimensions, just like us. It means he or she might act differently at home versus at work. It might mean they look really sweet and gentle, but they're actually vicious and mean. It could be like Rocky, relentless in the ring, but unable to break this poor guy's thumb. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How can we think about characters from the beginning that have multiple dimensions and have the room and need for change? A lot of times when we're watching a movie, what's keeping us engaged until the end is our desire as a viewer to see our character reach their goal. We want to see Brody kill the shark. We want to see Marlin find Nemo. We want to see Andy from The Devil Wears Prada reach her goal of being a serious journalist. What's really going to make us feel really great as a viewer and go like, aha, that was a great movie, I loved it, is seeing our character change. Marlin in the beginning of the movie is this overprotective, neurotic fish, and we want to see him relax a little bit and let his son grow. In the beginning of the movie, Brody is scared of the water. He feels like he's an outsider, and we want to see him overcome that fear and overcome those feelings of awkwardness. In the beginning of the movie, Andy thinks she's too good for fashion, and we want to see her learn that fashion is actually a legit industry and that her opportunity to work for that magazine is actually incredible and that a lot of people would die for that. So when we're thinking about our characters from the beginning, we can give them certain elements that will give them both three-dimensionality and this room to change. There are a few ways to do that, and I'm going to give you 3 tools today that you can incorporate into your character design so that your character has both that three-dimensionality and that room and that need for change. Let's remember that these are the arts. This is not science, which means sometimes these ideas overlap, sometimes they might be a little redundant, and that's okay. The way to think of this is tools for your toolbox and not one way to do it or strict rules you have to follow no matter what. The first thing you can do is think about flaws your character might have. Just as us humans, characters aren't perfect. They might have flaws. Perfect characters are boring. We don't want to see that. We want to see characters with flaws. They're humans. And flaws are exactly that. Something bad about your character that you want to see them improve over the events of the movie. Your character, for example, might be very selfish, might think only about themselves. Some good examples, Mark Zuckerberg in The Social Network, House MD in the TV show House. Most recently, Puss in Boots in the great animation Puss in Boots Last Wish. These are characters that only think about themselves. They only care about what they are feeling and what they want. And throughout the events of the movie, we see these characters overcome that selfishness and learn their lesson that it might be better to think about other people and that your life is going to be better for it. The second thing that you can think about when you're designing your character is give them ghosts. I don't mean an actual literal ghost. I mean ghosts from the past. Ghosts are things in your character's life that weren't resolved. A trauma that they have not overcome. Something in their past that completely informs their day-to-day life without them really knowing that. A bad breakup. Untimely death of a loved one. Something that your character might feel responsible for that completely haunts them to this day. This idea of something from the past that haunts them to this day. Throughout the events of the movie, we would like to see our character overcome those ghosts. Examples: death of a loved one, The Descendants, Finding Nemo, of course. A bad breakup, liar, liar, eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. These characters are dealing with these events from the past, these ghosts that our character have are informing how they're acting right now. And throughout the movie, we would like to see them overcome those ghosts. Sometimes you don't get the full story. In Jaws, for example, you never learn why Brody is scared of the water. Regardless, it's some ghost that he carries, and throughout the movie, you would like to see him overcome that fear of water. Third thing you can give your character that might give him room for change is this idea of a blind spot. A blind spot is something that your character does not know about themselves. The audience might know, but our character does not. And throughout the events of the movie, we will like to see our characters learn that about themselves. An example is Bill Murray's character in Groundhog Day. He thinks he is so above being a weather reporter that talks about Groundhog Day that he doesn't need anyone to succeed. That's a blind spot he has about himself. It's also a flaw, right? Because these things can overlap because these are the arts, not the science. And throughout the events of the movie, he's going to learn that it's better to connect with other people and that he might need other people to be happy. And that his job of announcing the weather and talking about Groundhog Day brings a lot of joy and warmth to people. And that's okay. A similar idea is Andy in The Devil Wears Prada. She thinks she's being completely reasonable in resenting this amazing opportunity at the fashion magazine. She wants to work for a real magazine, and the job in fashion is below her. That's a blind spot she has about herself. Throughout the events of the movie, she's going to learn to really respect the industry she's in and be thankful for this opportunity she has, even though there were a lot of difficulties along the way. These are 3 things you can give your character that are going to give them room and need for change. Flaws, ghosts, blind spots. And how are we going to see our character change? How are we going to know as a viewer that our character has changed? You can and should be really purposeful about this. We see our character doing something in the beginning of the movie, and by the end of the movie, we're going to see the character do the same thing but act completely differently. Examples. In Groundhog Day, we see Bill Murray rushing through the report of what the Groundhog thing's winter is going to be, if it's going to be short, it's going to be long, because he thinks he's so above that he can't wait to be out of town. He wants to go back to his normal life. He hates all of it. By the end of the movie, we see him do literally the same thing, right? Because he's caught in a time loop, so he's literally living his same day over and over and giving this warm, heartfelt speech about the passage of time and the importance of the seasons. We see that he has changed. Similarly, in Finding Nemo, we see our character has changed because we witness the first day of school at the beginning of the movie and the first day of school at the end of the movie. In the first day of school at the beginning of the movie, Marlin is worried about Nemo going too far ahead of him. The other parents ask him to tell a joke because he's a clownfish. He completely stumbles on the joke. He has no ability to do that. By the end of the movie, he's very relaxed taking his son to school, and he finally nails the joke. That is a very purposeful way that the storytellers do to show that Marlin has changed. So you can and should be really purposeful about that. So don't make your characters perfect. Give them dimensions. You can watch the video about a character wheel that's going to drop soon to how to build your cast of characters to better explore these dimensions of your character. If you like what you saw, please subscribe and share. Thank you so much.